Tonight, the 17 News Debate series continues. The 3rd District Supervisors Debate, sponsored by Barton Marketing Group.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Maddie Gannon.
And I'm Jim Scott. We are pleased to be your moderators for this one-hour debate here on TV 17, your local election headquarters. California's midterm general election just 5 weeks away now.
And the two men who want to represent people living in Kern County's 3rd Supervisorial District are with us tonight, and we'll meet them in a moment. But first, here's a quick look at the boundaries for the newly redrawn 3rd District, which is home to roughly 180,000 Kern County residents. From east to west, the district starts at the mouth of the Kern River Canyon and covers much of northeast Bakersfield. In the northeast, the district is generally bordered by Merle Haggard Drive to the north and Niles Street to the south. It also covers much of North Bakersfield and Oildale and includes West Bakersfield, bordered by Olive Drive to the north and White Lane in the south. The 3rd District's western boundary is Gofford and Coffee Roads. And while this is a nonpartisan race, it's worth noting here that Republicans make up about 37% of the voters in the 3rd District. 34% are Democrats, and about 20% of the registered voters have declared no party preference.
All right, let's meet the candidates. Jeff Flores is 51 years old, married with one son. For 12 years, he has served as Chief of Staff for 3rd District Supervisor Mike Maggard, who is stepping down from his post after 4 terms in office. Mr. Flores also serves on the Kern High School District Board of Trustees, a position he has held for 8 years. Mr. Flores is a graduate of the University of San Diego, where he earned a bachelor's degree in science. He also holds a master's degree in public administration from Cal State University Bakersfield and has even done some postgraduate work at the University of Queensland. He is a lifelong resident of Bakersfield. Brian Smith is a former assistant chief for the California Highway Patrol. He is 60 years old, married with 6 children, 3 stepchildren, and 12 grandkids. His career in law enforcement spans 34 years. He's also a veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps. Again, thank you, sir, for your service. Yes, sir. Brian Smith was born in suburban Philadelphia, PA, and has lived in Bakersfield since 1987.
All right, we're going to start off with opening statements now. Our candidates flipped a coin earlier. Mr. Smith won that coin toss. He's elected to go second. So first do Mr. Flores, your opening statement. 1 minute, please.
Yeah, thank you, Maddie. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, KGT, for hosting this debate. And most importantly, thank you to our audience that are watching in tonight. Experience matters. Right now, Kern County is under Sacramento attack and overreach. That's not some ambiguous word. That manifests in our daily lives. It's not okay to stand in the median and panhandle for money. It's not okay to block entrances to business corridors with homeless encampments. And it's not okay to go to Target and steal $900 worth of merchandise and get off scot-free. And it's not okay to hold hundreds of permits on our oil patch, the jobs and livelihood that our people depend upon. It's not okay to curtail water to our family farms, especially when we fuel the nation and feed the nation. I'm happy with my endorsements. I'm proud to have the support bipartisan from Kevin McCarthy, Andre Gonzalez, Senator Shannon Grove, Cynthia Zimmer, Mayor Go, Assemblyman Fong, and many others. Thank you so much. And the most important vote is the vote of the people, and I want to earn that tonight.
Mr. Smith, your opening statement. 1 minute, please.
Good evening and thank you. So I am a Marine Corps veteran. I was an assistant chief with the California Highway Patrol, former deputy chief with the Shafter Police Department, senior security advisor for California Resources Corporation, and I also am the author of Cocktails, a weekly article in the newspaper. You know, I have managed over 1,500 personnel, handled multi-million-dollar budgets. I co-wrote the California Highway Patrol's 5-year strategic plan. I personally created the Highway Patrol's statewide peer support program for officers that are involved in shootings. And I faced several life-threatening situations. You know, I got tired of the homelessness, the crime, the lack of representation, shortage of deputies, and I decided to do something and said, you know, I'm going to run for county supervisor. I'm excited to represent you, and once elected, I will be the only veteran and law enforcement official on the Board of Supervisors.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for the opening statements. Now questions to our candidates, and we'll be taking several questions from our viewers during tonight's debate as well. We want to start with public safety. And as of September 2nd, the Kern County Sheriff's Office had 144 vacant positions for patrol deputies, 130 vacancies for detention deputies, and 138 vacant civilian positions. That is roughly a half of all staff positions at the KCSO unfilled. So the question to you, gentlemen, what is your plan to turn the Sheriff's Office around and give constituents living in unincorporated Kern County the public safety net they want and they deserve? Mr. Smith, you're the candidate with 3+ decades of law enforcement experience. What say you, sir?
Well, you know, one of the things that we're facing now that we have to pay for is all the voices against law enforcement and BLM, and then now all of a sudden people are realizing that we need our law enforcement. So it has gotten harder to recruit. One of the things we need to do in Kern County is we need to set our priorities for public safety and law enforcement, but we have to make sure that their salaries and their benefits are comparable to other areas. For the last few years, we have been spending a fortune putting our deputies through training, through recruitment, through the academy, and then field training, and then after a year or so, they go to other departments. We're paying for all that, and we keep paying for it. And so basically, we're paying for other departments. Now, I want to put a committee together so that we can work on that recruitment. I want to make sure as a Board of Supervisor, we're recognizing the work that our deputies are doing. I want to make sure that we go on ride-alongs, we see what they're doing, and I'll tell you, it'll take a couple shifts and they're going to realize how much they do for us, how overworked they are, and that they need our help, and I'm going to be there to represent them.
Mr. Flores, what is your plan for rescuing the Sheriff's Department, sir?
Thank you. So philosophically, I am not about defunding the police. I'm about refunding. I support them 100%. My record at the Kern High School District is a testament to that. We have a great police force there. We have one of the biggest ones outside of BPD, and I'm going to double down on that for our county of Kern. I want to work with Sheriff Donnie Youngblood. He's the lead law enforcement officer for our county, and I want to give him the resources that he needs during budget time to make that happen. You know, and nationally, this is not just Kern County. This is a state and national phenomenon. People are having a tough time hiring in those ranks. We want to make Kern County the best paid law enforcement agency in the entire Central Valley. Right now, we are the 3rd highest paid. Only Stanislaus and San Joaquin are greater, but I think we can move up to the top. I think we can do a better job at recruitment, go outside the state, bring people to Kern County, give them bonuses for lateral transfers, for new hires, and make Kern County a welcoming place for law enforcement. That's my commitment.
Gentlemen, I have to follow up with a question. Have either of you sat down one-on-one with Sheriff Donnie Youngblood to get his view and his assessment of the conditions at the Sheriff's Department right now? Mr. Smith?
Yes, Sheriff Youngblood and I, we speak regularly. In fact, I was the first CHP commander that was president of the Kern Chiefs of Police, so I have a very good relationship going. And we did talk about, you know, we're already the county's already putting the money in to encourage people to come, but we actually talk about this, and we need to do more actually, but as a team, and we need to build that relationship with the Board of Supervisors as well. So it's just as important to the board as it is to the sheriffs.
Mr. Flores, you had direct one-on-one input from the sheriff?
So yes, intermittently on the campaign trail, I have seen him, I have spoken with him, but more importantly, I've spoken to him on the County Board of Supervisors vis-a-vis my Chief of Staff position. And so we have funded the Sheriff's Department at an all-time high of $271 million. We have given them technology, tasers, cameras, and I want to build upon that moving forward, and I want to be totally 100% committed to our law enforcement people here in Kern County.
Well, on this topic, we want to move to Measure K now. This, of course, will be on the ballot for voters in unincorporated Kern this November. In our last debate, both of you said that you oppose Measure K, which is a 1-cent sales tax increase to go to public safety and vital services. The revenue generated by Measure K is estimated to be about $50 million annually. That's locally controlled tax revenue, no state strings attached. So for those that missed our last debate, explain your opposition to Measure K. First to you, Mr. Flores.
So thank you. Now is not the time for taxes. We are suffering from unprecedented inflation. We just got out of COVID. People are struggling to provide for their families. This is not the time. You cannot tax your way to prosperity. So I do not support that sales tax measure, and I want to work on economic development, protect our key industries. That's what provides us valuable general fund funding to provide county services.
Mr. Smith, why are you opposed to Measure K?
You know what, I think anybody that knows me knows that I have always opposed raising taxes. And you know what, right now we're getting taxed to death. The gas tax, when you talk about the inflation. You know, there are people that are on a fixed income. They don't get the luxury of just saying, hey, we need more money, so give us more money. At the Highway Patrol, we went through some of the toughest budget periods, and we just had to tighten the belt. We had to get rid of waste. I have a long list of things that we can do where the revenue is going to come from, but I do not support a tax increase, and I can't support a tax increase.
Let's drill down on this a little bit deeper, gentlemen. I assume you're aware that the County Administrative Office has noted that the revenue generated by Measure K would come primarily from business-to-business transactions here in Kern County and retail sales from businesses outside city limits, businesses like truck stops and shopping outlets, and much of that tax revenue coming from people who are coming through Kern County and don't live here. So the financial burden on your constituents in unincorporated Kern would be marginal, according to the CAO's office. What is your response to that, Mr. Flores?
So the 3rd District encompasses large chunks of unincorporated Kern County, and we do have shopping centers. We do have retail. Oildale is a big chunk of the 3rd District. They're unincorporated. They shop there. They're working class. They're struggling to make ends meet. People in Hillcrest, the same thing in East Bakersfield. We do have county pockets. So, you know, I don't want to look those people in the eye and say, I want to tax you more. I want to tax you less. I want to make you successful. I want to fight for a healthy economy, a robust economy, to get them jobs. There's other ways that we can do this to provide for the county quality services.
Mr. Smith?
Yeah, I would say that we do have other ways to bring it, but it's not a 1 cent sales tax. It is a 1%. So people that have money, it's no big deal. But every time you go to the store, that means that every time you're going to get taxed even more for everything that you purchase. People just don't need that. Hopefully we'll get to a question on where we can get revenue elsewhere. But people that are hurting, it's a big deal. People that aren't hurting, it's not a big deal. Let's just push more taxes. But to those people that are on fixed incomes and don't have the money, every little expense matters. And I'm here to protect you and make sure you don't keep getting charged different expenses.
Sheriff Donnie Youngblood recently told me, and I'm quoting here, without a new and sustainable source of revenue, at the rate we're going, if we keep losing 26 deputies a year, we won't be able to staff a patrol division to provide adequate coverage for the people of Kern County. And if we're not able to turn that around, the outlook is pretty bleak. Mr. Smith, do you believe the sheriff is overstating the case?
Of course not. I'm not saying anything against the sheriff. But what I will say is that, I mean, I might as well get to it now, all the other revenue. But let me, before...
We'll have questions about that.
If you're going to have questions, let me just say this. We're actually talking about a moot point for Jeff and I. It's already been put on the ballot. So let the voters decide whether they're going to do it. But here's what I will tell you. If it is voted and the voters want it, I'm going to make sure that it's not just put in general fund to be wasted and spent on things we don't need. It's going to go for deputies, detention deputies, so that we can be tough on crime. And we can do the things that if the people are going to vote for it, make sure that money goes where it needs to go. It's already on the ballot, so let the voters decide that.
Mr. Flores, what do you make of the sheriff's assessment?
So, okay, so if you look at the analysis, and if you choose in the last 30 years the valuation of oil, if you choose the highest evaluation, well, yes, subsequently you're going to have downturns. So, you know, I don't think the sky is falling. You know, there is a tax on oil, there's a tax on industry, but again, we funded the sheriff's office to the highest level in the history of the county. Again, it's not localized. This is a statewide phenomenon, this is a federal phenomenon, but I am totally committed to funding the sheriff's office. Even if it means cutting other departments, if it means tapping in the reserves, we need to get him what he needs within reason because, you know, funding is finite. But I think we can do it without tax increases.
We still want to drill down on this a bit more. The sheriff says it sometimes takes hours for deputies to respond to urgent calls for assistance. A deputy assigned to Rural Patrol recently told the Board of Supervisors that some people in unincorporated Kern have just stopped calling because they know it will take so long. Is that something that residents just have to get used to? What do you say to them? First to you, Mr. Flores.
No, that's unacceptable. I don't want long call times because long call times put people in jeopardy. You know, fortunately, we live in Metro Bakersfield, so we do have good access to the Sheriff's Department. But for those people in rural communities, that is a concern. And again, I support funding him in the Sheriff's Department to the maximum extent possible within our fiscal means, within the budget. And that's why it's so important when we start talking about economic development, we need to develop new sectors of revenue so we can get him the funding that he needs for his deputies.
Mr. Smith, same question to you. What do you say to those residents?
We're actually in a state of emergency already with the shortage of our deputies. Kern County now is #1 in homicides per capita, and yet we don't even have a gang unit. We just had an incident over at North High. We do have school police for high schools, but we don't have, they can't afford to have, because they're short, they don't have deputies to go to junior highs and elementary schools as school resource officers now. We now is correct. We have deputies that are going all the way from Fraser Park to Taft over to Lamont. It is unacceptable. We are in a state of emergency now, and that's why I say we need to make this a priority. We need to make sure, and with all those short positions, we need to take the money that would have been budgeted for them to get them in there and get more deputies.
Jim, may I say something?
Certainly.
Okay, so this is more than funding because we have 100 paid positions right now. We've got the money.
100 paid positions.
100 paid vacancies. So we have money there. We just can't fill that.
You
So
have
this is-
134 vacancies.
Okay, so even more. That even proves my point more. What's the issue? It's more than fiscal. We need to do a better job at recruitment. We need to do a better job of selling the department. So it's more than just money. It's more than just taxes.
How do you sell a department, or how do you sell this job when the wages aren't comparable?
Well, again, we're the third highest in the Central Valley, and I said my commitment is to get us to the first highest over Stanislaus and over San Joaquin. But again, general fund revenues are finite. So it goes back to growing the overall economy and standing up for our traditional sectors so we're not losing revenue, so we're not having devaluations, so we can keep Kern whole.
Jim, if I could just comment
Certainly.
a little bit, is that one of the things that I did with the Highway Patrol is we did face these issues with recruitment, and we came up with a lot of programs, and that's why I would like to be part of that and work with the Sheriff's Department. But we had things such as Recruit Your Neighbor, and that was where highway patrolmen would go out and people that they thought would do a good job, motivate them, and then if they actually made it successfully through the academy, they actually got days off, comp time off. We also made sure that we went into the schools. We did commercials, but it was a constant thing on recruitment. We need to make the deputies proud again. When I was here as an officer working with the deputies, they loved the Sheriff's Department. They were proud of what they did. We need to get back to that pride. We need to have the deputies with their, actually, it's not even so much the pay as much as how much they love to be a deputy. I get in there, we're going to recognize them more, and we're going to make them happy and more proud that they're a deputy. And then they'll get their friends and their relatives and their families to become deputies as well.
Any GOP candidate supporting a tax increase is like swallowing a poison pill. It's always been thus, has it not? Can you name, Mr. Smith, a tax increase you have ever voted for? You live in the city. Did you vote for Measure in 2018?
I did not.
You did not.
I also don't. I would say I don't remember the last time I even voted for a bond measure.
But you see what Measure in has done for the city of Bakersfield. You see the benefits that it has generated, right?
I don't see a camera here.
No, but I'm asking you straight away.
Yes.
You've seen what Measure in has done for the city of Bakersfield. Do you not
Well,
hold the same
I also
hope?
have my feelings about that. That was pretty much pushed that it was going to be all about police, law enforcement, and it got spread all
And
over.
vital services, public service.
And so that got spread all over the place. And I'm not saying, look, I'm not going to stand up here and say that we can't use the $50 million. Don't get me wrong on that. What I'm saying is the people just can't afford to pay for that right now. And when we get to the question on where we can get revenue, I'll be more than happy to tell you that.
Okay, looking forward to that. Mr. Flores, you live in the county. Did you vote for Measure I in 2018?
Can you refresh my memory what Measure I is?
Measure I was the 1 cent sales tax for Kern County, the unincorporated portions of Kern County. It was the tandem measure to Measure N for the city.
No, I didn't vote for that.
Okay.
And again, this is not a 1 cent sales tax, it's a 13-cent increase.
13%.
13%, I'm sorry, 13%, you're right.
13% on 7.25% in what our sales tax rate is right now.
Yeah,
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, 13%.
All right, so gentlemen, you're aware of the grim budget projections contained in the economic analysis presented to the Board of Supervisors back in the summer, when the CAO was making a case to place this measure, Measure K, on the ballot, not advocating it, but to get the board to put it on the ballot. Property tax revenues from oil and gas properties have been declining steadily since 2015, a loss of some $390 million during that period. Assessed valuation of oil and gas properties down by about 64% during that same period. So if Measure K doesn't pass, what is your plan B to offset the losses in revenue that we continue to experience? Mr. Smith?
Okay, so now we
There
can
you
get
go.
to it then, right?
Okay.
What we've been waiting
You have
all
2
night
minutes.
for.
You have 2 minutes.
Okay, don't start the clock yet. Actually, oil and gas will always be a top priority for me. I will always defend the oil and ag and gas. However, we have other ways to make this money. And to tell you the truth, after reviewing everything, I'm actually excited about our future in Kern County. You know, we have carbon sequestration. They're talking about multi-million and possibly billions of dollars there coming into the county. They're building a new casino in Kern County, which is going to generate a lot more money. They're talking about, or actually put the permits in and everything for a whole new housing complex down by Windwolves. This is more revenue coming in. Talk about the inland port, the money that Long Beach and LA Port makes and the jobs that they create. Just imagine what's coming to Kern County. And we'll be getting revenue from there as well. We'll be getting new training facilities. You know, I mentioned I was the deputy chief of the Shafter Police Department, and you talk about the geniuses that are out in Shafter and were in Shafter, that they didn't wait for businesses to come to them. They went to the businesses. They visited them and said, come to Kern County. It's cheaper, your housing's better, it's a great community to live in. And so that's what I want to do. I want to get out there and bring the businesses into Kern County and make revenue from that as well. And then, like I've always said, we still need to cut waste, we need to trim the belts, and we need to just not spend money foolishly. Right. So I'm excited for the future, and I think you would be too.
Mr. Flores, what is your plan B to offset reductions in property taxes at the county level?
So, if you look at the projections of the need for oil and carbon fuels, that's not going away. California may think it's going away, but it's not. And the tacit implication here is that we still import oil from other countries, from petro-dictators. And so the need is not going away. We can do it here. We should be buying it from here. But to expand upon diversification, we do need that, and we are doing that. The county is a strategic investor in B3K, Building a Better Bakersfield and a Boundless Kern. This is an exciting initiative, a pathway to prosperity, a pledge to have 100,000 new jobs over the next decade, creating new sectors of entrepreneurship, of business services, of advanced logistics, in aerospace. These are not dreams. These are things that we're doing now, and we can even do better because this county is a center of innovation. We can do that. Again, carbon sequestration. This is not just a concept. We have the natural geographic formations here to do this. This represents, in terms of economic projections, billions to the Kern County economy, and we have realized billions in our solar industry. We can do it once again with sequestration, and also going to carbon neutrality, not giving up on our industries, but creating a new pathway. We have outside investment right now, Jim. $60 million coming from Canadian firms. CRC is investing, Chevron's investing. I think the economic future here is bright, and I will fight every day on the economic development front for a better Kern County.
Okay, we have about 5 minutes left in this segment. Gentlemen, I want to squeeze in a couple of viewer questions here. Our first question may go a little far afield here, but it does go to the issue of transparency and community engagement, and it also touches on a story that's dominated local headlines this week. This question comes from Chris Garcia and several other parents in the Kern High School District, and it's directed to you, Mr. Flores. It reads, Mr. Flores, you are the second longest serving member of the Kern High School District Board of Trustees. Kern High School parents had to learn about fentanyl overdoses through social media this week rather than from you or the Kern High School District. The emergency meeting held on Tuesday night at North High School was a complete mess. You did not attend. What were you doing that was more important? Would you care to respond to that?
Yeah, so fentanyl is a pressing issue across California. It's coming from open borders. It's tragic. Just touching it can kill somebody. And our school is totally committed. We've got drug interventionists, we've got education, we've got Manuel Carrizales with Stay Focused Ministries. We do everything we can to keep our students safe. And for the record, my understanding is there was not a fentanyl overdose. Medical professionals that arrived on scene to treat the student said there was no indication of opiate use. However, it was a marijuana vape pen. However, I'm totally committed to student safety. My whole tenure has been about student safety. It's the ultimate responsibility. Also, we need everyone's help. If you think the schools are going to keep everything out, it's an impossibility unless you have TSA in there. We need parental help. It starts at home. Talk to your students. We'll work with you. We want to keep our students safe.
Did I hear you correctly saying you didn't believe that you don't believe there were any overdoses within the high school district?
I said
At North High?
opiates and fentanyl, because the medical professionals that were on scene said there was no indication of opiates. There was marijuana vape pens. People were sick and were transported by ambulance.
We had a number of parents who were called to the school because their children had collapsed. And
Well,
had
I know you can
overdosed.
collapse some other things other than fentanyl. You can collapse from marijuana. You can collapse from a whole plethora of drugs, illicit drugs. But according to the medical professionals in Kern County Fire Department and nursing that saw the students, there was no indication of opiate overdose.
That runs counter to what we've been reporting and what the school district actually said following the initial reports.
That's what the superintendent reported to me. So if you've got something contrary from the district, I'd like to talk about it.
Well, we have another viewer question on this topic. This comes to us from Ethan. It was sent to our website. It's directed at both candidates. Ethan wants to know, if elected, what do you plan to do about the rising fentanyl overdose rates in Kern County? First to you, Mr. Smith.
I'll tell you what, it comes back to the same thing about California and just being so lax with drugs. And this is what people voted for under Prop 47. I've said since the beginning, I will get on a committee or try to get on a committee, at least work to do away with the Prop 47. Now, what I think we need to do is all parents need to be educated on this. My son works for the Highway Patrol in the Drug Recognition Unit in Sacramento. We talked about this. When I heard about this meeting that was going on, I was in Santa Barbara and I drove up to Oildale, to North High to be at that, and I called my son on the way. I have my experiences, but he's the expert up there. There's a program that the California Highway Patrol will present for free to administrators, teachers, and school nurses that will train them what to be looking for and early intervention for people. I also think that we need to have random random canines walk through the schools so that people don't know when they're going to be coming through. And then also the training for the parents to know what to look for, and continue with the DARE programs for children.
All right, gentlemen, very good. We have reached the halfway point in tonight's debate. We have more questions for the candidates after the break. And we are back in 3 minutes. Stay tuned.
The 17 News Debate series continues, sponsored by Barton Marketing Group.
Welcome back to our live debate tonight between the two candidates who want to represent the people of Kern County's 3rd Supervisorial District, Brian Smith and Jeff Flores. I'm Maddie Gannon, along with 17's Jim Scott. Again, thank you for stopping in. We want to dive right back into questions. You both touched on this earlier, but if elected, what are your top 3 priorities? First to you, Mr. Flores.
My top 3 priorities are addressing homelessness, advancing economic development, delivering quality county services to the public that we serve, and protecting law enforcement. Those are my top 3.
Thank you. To you, Mr. Smith?
Yes, mine are homelessness, taking care of crime, and also constituency services. People need to know that they're going to be represented, and that's why I'm going to be there. The things they need, they're going to get, and they're going to be answered right away. As far as the crime, we're going to get deputies, law enforcement taken care of. We're going to beef them up. And homelessness, everybody, that's the number one issue. As I walk door to door, that's what everybody tells me, is homelessness is big on their agenda.
On the topic of homelessness, Governor Newsom earlier this month signed into law legislation that creates Care Court, which provides for court-ordered treatment for individuals within our homeless community with serious mental health and drug addiction disorders. It's estimated that between 7,000 to 12,000 people in California would qualify for Care Court. Do you support Care Court, Mr. Smith?
Absolutely, I do. There's problems with it. And again, this is for the people that have behavioral issues, right? The biggest problem is drugs, and we'll get to that later. But you drive around, everybody out there drives around and sees people doing dances and jumping out in front of them in cars and defecating on the sidewalks. Many of those people, it's drugs related, but there are people out there that have mental health issues. And it's not right that they're out on the streets like that. We need to take care of them. The hospitals were shut down years ago, and that didn't help these people. I do like the Care Court. The problem is the housing is still going to be an issue, and where to put them. We don't have the hospitals, so that is going to be an issue. But I do support people getting the help without going to jail. Those people need the help. And you can't do anything with them now, maybe a 72-hour hold. But now with this new Care Court, they can actually be taken and helped. So I do support it. I think it can be a good program, but of course we're going to need more places to house them.
Mr. Flores, what say you?
I do support it. Jim, last night I was driving on 178 by Snyder Cyclery, and I almost hit a homeless person at nighttime. Came very close. It could have been a terrible tragedy. I support anything that moves us in the direction of mandated treatment, mental health treatment, drug treatment. The County of Kern right now, we're doing 2 mental health facilities, psychiatric facilities that are going to be coming online, 2 hospitals. We have a lot of mental health providers currently that we work with the County of Kern. These people now qualify for services. They probably have better coverage, healthcare coverage than I do. We need to do a better job of integrating them into the system, getting them treatment with Kern County Behavioral Health, and getting them on a pathway to recovery.
The 3rd District is a cross-section of the county. You have affluent neighborhoods, middle-class neighborhoods, pockets of poverty, primarily north of the river, much of it in Oildale. It's one of 2 districts that have the majority of the homeless population in the county. The Kern River, where it runs through the 3rd District in particular, has dozens of homeless encampments. Everybody complains about these encampments and the trash that it generates. Can't we do better, Mr. Flores?
Yes, we can, and we must, and we should, and we are. This week I got a call from an optometrist on North Chester Avenue who was struggling with homeless encampments. I have a long history of experience of getting rapid response crews out there, of abating homelessness, of sending out the sheriff's office, of cleaning up corridors. The river's governed by the city, so we work with the city on that part, but we do, because people have had enough, and I'm totally committed to doing whatever it takes to put in resources into our homeless problem. We should have a 0 tolerance for any encampment. We already passed a camping ordinance. We need more resources and more teams, and we have built more teams. We have mental health evaluation teams, rapid response teams. What that is they go out, clean up the encampment, offer services, and get them plugged in. But we need to be stronger. There's a professional class of homeless people that don't want services. And for those people, we need it to be stronger. And I say, if they don't want services after we offer them, give them a ticket back to their county of origin.
Mr. Smith, how would you attack this problem if elected?
I think one of the things that people are finding out is homelessness is spreading everywhere. But you know what? I honestly, there has been some cleanup done in Oildale recently and in the last 6 months to a year. But I want to see that continue every year. Not just in election years. I want to see it all the time. I want to make sure that we stay on it. And any issues that people bring up, like the homelessness and the encampments and all that, I'm going to make sure that we continue to do that all the time. The homelessness issue, and I don't know if we're going to get to that question later for the whole thing, but I'll tell you, the biggest problem is we need tough love, and I'll just jump into it a little bit right now. You go through Oildale, again, Jeff talked about almost hitting somebody. These people that are on drugs, they need tough love. They're not going to get help by themselves. But if we arrest them, and I understand detention, deputies, we'll talk about all that later, but the point is once we beef them up, these people need to be in custody because that's the only way they're going to get the treatment that's available to them. And I'll continue that on another question.
Well, let's continue right now with that. You favor getting the corrections department or the Kern County Sheriff's Office and the jail system involved in this tough love approach to drug addiction in our community. Isn't that correct? And if so, you would support some kind of a rehabilitation program that is run through our jail system, correct?
Yes.
Okay, but we don't have the deputies. We don't have the detention deputies. We have 2 wings of Laredo pretrial that are empty because we don't have the deputies to staff them. What's the answer? That's
correct. And the answer is not going to be solved in the first month. We will get on it in the first month. We will do everything we need to get the deputies staffed. But the problem is that, and in fact, Jim, you're going to see on my Facebook, on my webpage, we just did an interview. A friend of the family has been on the streets. She's been on the streets for 4 years and wouldn't come home, and you'll find out a lot on the interview. But the point is after 4 years, she finally got arrested. Did 86 days, and now she looks great now. And I mean, she has her ankle monitor on there. She has to stay home, but she's doing the treatment. And we sat down and we talked, and she said, I would have never got the treatment that I needed. I sobered up because I was in custody. Now, when I would stop somebody with fentanyl or drugs, they would go to prison. Now that it's not a felony anymore, it's a misdemeanor, but it's still punishable up to a year in jail. What I want to do is meet with the sheriff, with the DA, with the probation chief, with the courts, and it's still punishable by a year. Let's give them the year, let's get them the rehab treatment, and then let's solve some of these problems instead of just sidestepping and giving all this money to the homeless over and over and over again. That's needs to be fixed.
Mr. Flores, do you take issue with anything Mr. Smith said there?
No, I mean, that's actually a good ending point. There's been so much money in funding on homelessness. We've actually created a homeless industrial complex, and money alone is not going to solve it. We've spent millions and millions of dollars, and I think it's getting worse. I think we need to change approach. We need new strategies. I think we need to look to the city of San Diego under the leadership of Kevin Faulkner. He had a real reduction in homelessness by cracking down on encampments, by supporting bridge housing, transitional housing. This week, the County of Kern just approved 9,000 units, not built overnight, but online coming on the future. That's going to help our housing supply, but it's more than housing. It's mental health supports, it's drug counseling. It's going to take a holistic approach to get a handle on this.
All right, gentlemen, I want to move to another viewer question. This question comes to us from John Pryor and is directed at both of you. Mr. Pryor asks, how do you view the pros and cons of annexation of our multiple local county islands, the residential and commercial properties which are surrounded on all sides by the city of Bakersfield? Mr. Flores, let me start with you.
So, annexations are complicated matters that go to LAFCO. But ultimately, for me, some folks enjoy the county lifestyle, like Old Stockdale. Some folks don't want to be part of the city. Some people are satisfied with their county services. So to me, any annexation attempt has to be neighborhood and citizen driven. If the neighbors support it and it meets the LAFCO guidelines, I'm okay with annexation. But that's not something that I'm championing. It's going to have to be citizen driven from that neighborhood in question.
Yeah, this is a prickly issue in the past, no doubt about that.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Smith, what do you think?
Actually, I have to go along with the idea that, there are more expenses, if you're going to annex, and there's more restrictions. I think you have a little more freedoms out in the county areas. But again, I firmly believe that the people that live in those areas should be making those decisions.
Nearly 2 years ago, the Board of Supervisors did not listen to the recommendations of its public health department and decided not to approve a multi-million-dollar contract for COVID-19 outreach programs for disadvantaged communities. That contract was intended for the nonprofit Building Healthy Communities. The board, led by Supervisor Zach Scrivener, pulled that contract after several posts appeared on the nonprofit's Facebook page in support of defunding local law enforcement agencies. Scrivener, along with Supervisors Mike Maggard and Mick Gleason, determined those statements were an insult to local law enforcement and did not align with the board's pro-law enforcement leanings. The ACLU has threatened a lawsuit alleging the board violated the nonprofit's right to free speech. First to you, Mr. Smith, would you have voted to pull that contract?
Let me first say that I do appreciate being in law enforcement, the fact that our supervisors would defend against slander and putting our deputies and our officers down. So let me say that first. Second of all, you have to be careful on what issues you're voting on. You can't violate certain rights and First Amendment rights, and so it's easy for me to sit here afterwards and say, but I would have to say that I, and again, I don't know enough about it, so I really hate to be using my words for this, but I would say that based on the knowledge that I have, I would not have been able to vote that way.
Mr. Flores, now to you. What do you make of the board's decision? What would you have done?
Oh, so thank you. First of all, the county spent millions of dollars on COVID outreach. We worked with the Kern County Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, multiple community partners. A lot of the ads were here on KGET itself, and I'm proud of the work that we did. I personally worked at Bakersfield College with these teams. I worked on vaccinations. I worked with our educators. So we did do COVID outreach for the pandemic.
What about the contract, Mr. Flores?
So about the contract, so the contract was not pooled. The contract never had a motion. So our supervisors also have a First Amendment right. And when they say they support law enforcement, that's their right to support law enforcement. If it didn't get a motion, there was no vote.
Well, on that, in general, should the board only disperse discretionary funds to entities that align with the board's leanings?
No, the board should offer contracts that do the job of the contract in question. If it's COVID outreach, they should have a proven record at outreach. We don't support political agendas. We support good work on the healthcare front.
All right, gentlemen, races for county supervisor are nonpartisan, but perhaps in name only these days. I don't know. Mr. Flores, you were recently criticized online by Fernando Jara, a local political consultant who happens to be the husband of 5th District Supervisor Leticia Perez. And Mr. Jara posted this in early September. He called you an anti-Mexican Republican, but also a Latino. He referred to you as the MAGA Latino Republican who works for Republican oligarch Mike Maggard. What do you make of that, Mr. Flores?
Well, I'm proud to work for Supervisor Mike Maggard in the tenure and accomplishments that he's had. He's not an oligarch, he's a public servant, and I look to carry in those footsteps. I denounce his comments. I think Fernando Jara is out of line. I think he should go check his own luggage, particularly his conflict of interest at the Board of Supervisors. His wife was fined, and don't throw sticks at or rocks at glass houses, so to speak. I'm a proud centrist Republican. I have wide bipartisan support. I'm going to be a representative for everybody, irrespective of political stripe. I don't check registrations. I check their problems, and I work on their problems. I give real-world solutions to anybody that's in the 3rd District. I have a heart for service.
You say you're a centrist Republican, so do you consider yourself aligned with the MAGA movement at all?
Well, I'm a conservative Republican. I mean, I'm not a far-right Republican, if that's what his accusation was. I'm not a conspiratorial theorist. I don't believe in chemtrails or government takeovers. I believe in personal responsibility. I believe in limited government. I believe in public safety. I believe in family values. I believe in faith, and I have a long record of that, and I'm proud of my record. I'm proud of my heritage of being possibly the first Hispanic on the Board of Supervisors in the 3rd District. What an amazing accomplishment, and I want to be a part of that American dream.
Mr. Smith, are you a supporter of the MAGA movement?
Yes, I am.
Are you?
I you know, there's certain parts I can't just outwardly say, but I will say this about President Trump. You know, you can disagree, which I disagree how he handled.
January 6th?
No, well, we didn't get there, but I will say that he has done so much for this country that if you take away the exterior and the insults, which I don't agree with. I think you should be a professional and also set the example as a president of the United States. But at the same time, if you look at a lot of things that he did for this country, I have to support him.
Do you believe that President Biden stole the election?
I actually do. I'm not saying President Biden did, but I think that there's enough proof out there that there was definitely some cheating going on. Now, having said that, I think it's very important for people on both sides to continue to vote. I think that when we see that people are stealing ballots, when they catch 30,000 ballots down in Torrance and different problems like that, then we need to prosecute. And when you have proof of it. But the people need to realize that you still need to vote. Everybody needs to vote. And especially in California, you don't even have to pay for the stamp. Just vote. We had a terrible voting record in the primary. So just fill out your ballots and send it in.
Mr. Flores, do you believe the 2020 election was stolen?
I don't believe it was stolen. There are election abnormalities, but not enough to throw the election. And if you look at the Republican races that were picked up in Congress, if they really had a magic switch, how could you win in one side and lose in the other? It's not possible. Having said that, we need to do a better job at election integrity. I was here with Congressman Valadeo, with district attorneys from Hanford, our own Cynthia Zimmer, to work on election integrity because there are issues. And we want to tighten that up. We want to have organizational improvement at our own county elections department. It shouldn't take a month for results. We can do a better job.
And if I could just add also, that I don't see any reason either side, there is nobody that can justify why we do not require identification to vote. It's ridiculous to me. And then when you say, well, it's a problem because some people can't afford it. We require identification for everything in this country, everything. And yet they're saying that we can't require identification to vote. It's ridiculous, and we need to get back to requiring identification for people to vote.
All right, gentlemen, we have one final viewer question. It comes to us from Jenna and is directed at Mr. Flores, and it reads, it's a rather lengthy question, so let me get through it. Mr. Flores, you're a registered Republican, yet in June of this year you paid for and sent mailers to registered Democrats that strongly insinuated that you were a Democrat. The mailer you paid for asked voters to support Gavin Newsom for governor and featured your name and picture with images of Governor Newsom and Barack Obama. Directly under your name, your mailer instructed voters to vote straight Democratic. Your campaign consultant, Kathy Abernathy, told KGT in June that you knew what you were sending when you paid for these mailers. Jenna goes on to say, it's okay for candidates to advertise to different groups of voters, but it's obvious to any regular person that your mailer was an attempt to deceive one group of voters into thinking you are a registered Democrat. Why should anyone trust a person who has demonstrated this level of dishonesty with Kern County voters? Do you care to address that voter's concern?
Oh, I'd love to, because the deception is actually tucked in that very question from that voter. So one, this was not a mailer from my campaign. This is what is known as slates. And in a nonpartisan race, I'm proud to communicate with all voters of all stripes, Democrats, Republicans, independents. I buy as many slates as possible to communicate with voters. Those slates are done by an independent third party. They design them, they make them, they mail them. I just pay the bill. Both sides of the aisle buy slates. The slates go back 50 years. That's common practice. So I want to earn Democrat votes, Republican votes, independent votes, and that's my answer to that question.
Okay. Mr. Smith, do you have anything to add to that?
I would just say that I do want to, and I do have support from a lot of Democrats as well in this. I just think it was kind of deceiving to put a mailer out there that says that he is a Democrat on there. If it's for me...
Well, the mailer didn't say that, first of all.
Actually, it just had you on there and
Well,
said
but
vote.
it did not say I was a Democrat. We could
No,
pull
no,
up-
it
we
said
could pull-
vote for these
No,
Democrats.
you just said
right?
you
It
just
says
said I
vote
was
for these
I
Democrats.
think we described it,
You said
gentlemen.
the
I think
mailer
we
was
described it.
I was a Democrat. It did not say I was
Yeah.
a Democrat.
Yeah, we described it accurately. Let's
It
not
says
get
vote for
bogged
these
down in
Democrats, and
semantics.
so you asked my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm not getting into this. I have nothing to do with the question.
Well,
I'm just
again,
telling you that it said vote for these Democrats. You're okay.
Well,
let me
I have a
let me
copy.
clarify.
I have a copy. Okay, it's your time. Go ahead.
Well, no. Let me just say that it says at the top, vote for these Democrats. But let me stand corrected. It does not say you are a Democrat. You did not say you are a Democrat.
It just says vote Democrat and then has the pictures of
Yes,
candidates.
so let me just clarify that.
Okay.
We want to move to another topic now.
Okay, no worries, no worries.
Mr. Flores, you have the edge when it comes to institutional knowledge of the inner workings of the county administrative building, but the term insider is a label that cuts both ways. Some might say it's an extension of the old guard and that constituents in the 3rd District might be better served by an outsider, but it also means that you've been there and you've seen things be done in the county. What do you say?
I think experience matters, especially with the pressing challenges facing the county from Sacramento, from the federal government, here in our own community. We want someone that's tested. We want someone that's trusted. We want someone that knows the departments, that knows the people in departments, that knows how to get things done, that can deliver quality services. I'm a phone call away. I have a whole history of problem solving, of working for the community. I think that's an asset to have experience at the county because we're running for a county position.
Mr. Smith, what do you say about not having the experience? Do you think that's a benefit to you?
Well, I think one of the things that people want new things. They want, I've said in the first thing that my mom always said, a new broom sweeps the cleanest. People are just tired of the same that's been happening. But as far as the experience, I was over the entire Central Valley of the California Highway Patrol, very successful organization. When I interviewed for the manager of the Santa Barbara Probation Department, they told me I was the only applicant that had no experience in probation or parole. I interviewed, I came out number 1, I got the job, and I was very successful there. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, because it worked out for me, but we couldn't sell our house. I got offered the job in Shafter, and we went there. But just in that 6 months, I was very successful down there. And so it's the same thing in the county. If I can run a major division of the California Highway Patrol, I can certainly go in and run a district in Kern County, and very successfully.
All right, gentlemen, we have about two minutes left here, so we're going to try and get some quick answers here. Sure. The environmental justice movement is a force to be reckoned with. Activists celebrating the signing of SB 1137 earlier this month. It imposes expanded buffer zones of 3,200 feet around new oil and gas drilling. Do either of you see any merit in SB 1137? 45 seconds or so for an answer, Mr. Flores.
No, I oppose that bill. I don't see merit in that. Our industry does this safely. We produce good jobs. We produce oil that's needed for our economy. This is another attack on our industry, and I wholeheartedly support our industry. I also support public safety, and we do it right. We do it safe. We haven't had incidents, so I don't support the bill.
All right, Mr. Smith?
I absolutely agree with Jeff. I think that this is just their way of trying to restrict the oil production, and they'll come up with something else. They're always trying to come up with new measures in Sacramento to cut it, and so it definitely is a bad program. And I'll also tell you on safety, when I worked for California Resources Corporation, I was very impressed with their safety program. That's one thing that they did not take any shortcuts with. They're very safe out there.
All right, time for closing statements. Same order as opening statements. So first you, Mr. Flores, 30 seconds, please.
So thank you to the voters who've tuned in tonight. I'm so pleased with my first place position in the primary. It's only because of you. I would be honored to serve as your next supervisor for the 3rd District. I will hit the ground running. I will serve you. I will solve your problems. I want to deliver quality government services. I want government to work for you, not against you. So I would be honored to earn your support in November.
All right, thank you. And now, Mr. Smith, your closing statement, 30 seconds, please.
Yes, Kern County's biggest issues are crime, homelessness, and drugs. Now, do you want somebody who has 34 years of law enforcement experience and is endorsed by first responder agencies, or someone who's been working in the office for the last 12 years, and granted, is very knowledgeable in that area, but is also endorsed by establishment politicians? Just remember what my mother says, a new broom sweeps the cleanest. I'm excited to get in there and make some changes and really make it exciting to live in Kern County again, and people proud to be here. Thank you, and God bless you.
All right, Jeff Flores and Brian Smith. Gentlemen, thank you for your time, and best of luck to you as you head out back on the campaign trail for what you both described as a sprint to the finish line on November 8th.
And our next debate is set for 7 p.m. Wednesday, October 12th, and will feature the 2 candidates running for California's 22nd Congressional District. That's David Valadeo and Rudy Salas. We hope you'll join us then.
And our only goal in all of this, of course, is as a public service to you to help you make an informed decision at the polls on November 8th. We want to thank you all for stopping in tonight. For Maddie Gannon, I'm Jim Scott. Good night.
The 17 News Debate series sponsored by Barton Marketing Group.